Hello and welcome to this episode of Segmentertainment with Sam Rhodes. We've got a very, very exciting international episode today, and I'm very, very pleased to be able to welcome to the podcast the wonderful Steve Whitmire. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's a real pleasure to finally get to meet you. I mean, we started corresponding, I think, in March sometime, and it's really nice
of 2001, I think, wasn't
That's
it?
right.
No, we did, and I'm so glad we're able to connect. It's great. I have a great history on your side of the ocean. So
yes, I know. You must have spent a large amount of time over in London during your
I did.
work.
Where are you located exactly?
I'm actually sort of just outside of Morden, so I'm the very bottom of London. I'm as far down as you can go and still be in London. Now, what I was thinking is, obviously, I know who you are. The guys who know their stuff are going to know who you are. But just for the regular listeners, would you like to explain a little bit about who you are and what you're up to?
Well, it's probably better that I don't, because it's kind of embarrassing to have done this for 40 years. I'm one of the Muppet performers that started with Jim Henson about 1978. On the Muppet Show, which is what took me to London to begin with. And I did a whole bunch of characters. One of my originals was a guy named Rizzo the Rat. And then when Jim passed away, I guess I'm probably most well known for having stepped in to do Kermit the Frog and Ernie on Sesame Street for almost 30 years. I was Jim had about 6 or 7 people that he called his kind of core team. And I was fortunate enough to be one of those people.
That's an amazing thing. And I mean, I'm always in awe of anyone who does performance for a living, but to have someone who's done such a great job for such a long time truly is an honor. And it's very, very kind of you to come and join us today.
Well, it's very nice of you to say that. And I'm a great admirer of anyone who does stand-up, because I have never done that. I don't know whether who Bob Saget is. I don't know whether he's internationally known, but a stand-up guy, Bob Saget, used to host some shows here in the States, quite well known. And I did a bit with him once with Kermit, and he asked me if I'd ever done stand-up, because Kermit was funny, but I'm kind of not, I mean, I never have, and I never had the guts to put my face out there. It was always hiding under something,
Well, next time you're over in London, mate, I'm going to put you up. You know it.
Oh, my God. I'm better in a dialogue than I am in a monologue.
That's it. We're going to bust that stand-up cherry. That's what's going to happen. So, what this is Segmentertainment, the show where we hear a little theme tune, which hopefully is our way into a nice little chat about something. The theme tunes are often sort of suggested by prior guests. So at the end of the episode, if you fancy thinking of something you'd like to hear a song written about, then you're there. But I've got some exciting news, because I often get very, very famous recording artists in. Oh, yes, to come and do the theme tunes. So this first theme tune is actually by the legend himself, old wobbly Bob Dylan. Yeah, we've had Bob Dylan in to record a theme tune.
Okay.
And I'm going to play it for you. Let's have a little listen.
Oh, when you yearn by a song, yeah, you do. How did it feel to hear the first song on your first album you bought? How did it feel when you heard that song playing from over there? Oh, yeah. I'm Bob Dylan. Hey, hey.
So that was Bob Dylan there, of course.
It was. I can tell he hasn't changed a bit.
No, his voice is top notch. When he come in here originally, I looked at him and I thought, who's this weird little shambly tramp? But it was actually Bob Dylan, and he recorded a song. And the question he had for you, sir, is what is the first album that you ever remember sort of owning and really getting into?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I'm stalling while I tick back through the years. The first one I ever was actually my own album. I had access to other albums because my parents were album people. But let's see, LP. First one I recall owning, this might even sound a little weird. Well, it's probably something like the Chipmunks or some silly cartoon thing. But the one that one of them that impressed me the most, do you remember, I don't know whether this made it to the UK or not, but back during the 1960s Batman, Adam West and all that.
Yeah.
They did a version of the Green Hornet at the same time.
Yeah.
And So that was, that was the serious show. Batman was the silly show. I like Batman too, but I really got into the Green Hornet. And part of it was because a musician named Al Hurt played the trumpet theme song. This amazing thing he was able to do with his lips, where it was this like stuttering kind of trumpet thing. And I loved that music. And my parents bought me the album of the theme song. And I played it until it was so scratchy, it was, you couldn't play it anymore. And then I wanted to learn to play the trumpet. And my dad secretly recorded me as about a 9-year-old, this horrible moaning, it sounded like an animal being killed, trumpet from the other room. And I yelled out, "Hey Dad, did that sound like the theme from the Green Hornet?" No, but he said, "Well, come listen for yourself."
It's always brass instruments, isn't it? Because when I was a little kid, the very first thing I played was the trombone, and I was way too small. And my arms weren't long enough to get the notes. And I don't know if you know, but before I was a stand-up, I was actually a professional musician for about 10 years. So I did an awful lot of stuff. But what was really funny is I played the trombone so badly, when I actually then later on in life wanted to take it up seriously, my parents said, "No, you were so awful at trombone. There's no way we're going to let you anywhere near anything." I
appreciate their honesty, though. At least,
well,
they didn't encourage you to do something that was going to be stupid.
That's right. They were trying to protect me ultimately, I think.
Yeah.
So, did you sort of grow up with music through your teenage years? Was it something that was a big part of your life?
It was. My parents. In fact, my parents used to say they weren't musical people, but the fact is they actually were. They didn't play instruments, but they loved all these different kinds of music. So my whole childhood was, my dad had one of those, it was the 60s and 70s. So he had one of those bigger than I can do my hands even on a screen, giant console stereo things with the two speakers as far apart as possible. And, stereo had just hit the scene. So you'd buy all these stereo demo albums where you could sit right in the middle and things would shoot through your head,
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But all kinds of music, he liked everything from, John Philip Sousa marches, like military marches, all the way up to Little Richard and Elvis and all those kind of things, And one thing that was a huge influence on me was my mom had these old, the 78 RPM records, which were lacquer. And, you touched them and they cracked into pieces. And of a guy named Stan Freberg, who I don't know whether you know who that is. Stan was like, and I don't know whether you know who Weird Al Yankovic is.
I love Weird Al, mate. He's one of my favorites.
Stan was sort of Weird Al before Weird Al.
Oh, okay.
And he's actually slightly before my time, but he did 1950s and 60s parodies of songs. You'd love this stuff.
Oh, amazing.
And it's brilliant. And he did the characters in the song. He was also coincidentally a puppeteer. I didn't know that when I was a kid. But just a remarkably brilliant guy. And his stuff was a huge influence on me. And I found out later it was also a huge influence on Jim Henson. Once I met Jim, apparently Jim used to love his stuff too. So
it's so interesting, isn't it? I love opening with with music as the first topic, because when you meet other guys, there's usually only one of two topics for new conversations. It's either who's your favorite sports team or what music do you like? And I just find no matter where I go in the world, if you can find a band in common or something, then you're instantly friends with these people, and I just think it's such a beautiful
I'm a little bit more, the music side than the sports side. I was so terrible at sports. I was always too intimidated to try. I tried to play what you call football, what we called when I was a kid, soccer. And which was, in my case, was a better name because I got socked so hard. We were on the front line. The other team was kicking the ball. I was about 11 years old. And the biggest guy in the class on the other side kicked the ball so hard, it was like a cannonball. It hit me right in the middle of my diaphragm, kind of like the solar plexus. Knocked all the air off me. It spasmed, and I couldn't breathe.
Oh, no.
And all of the other guys said, "Way to go, Steve, you blocked, yeah." So I had to act like I had done it on purpose, and yet I could not breathe for about 20 minutes.
I think there's something about not being good at sports that gets people into the arts, isn't it?
You got to find something.
That's exactly it. I had such a similar experience. All my mates used to love playing basketball, and I just got a basketball straight in the face one day, and I was like, I think this is enough of this for me. I think I'm going to have to find something else to do.
We could say that our sports careers were ended with an injury.
That's right.
That sounds like very macho.
Unbeaten with an injury. That's exactly what it goes.
Yes.
So speaking of other art, was it puppetry that you leapt to straight away, or was there a couple of other stops along the way?
There were stops. The thing that I was probably the most drawn to when I was maybe 9 or 10 were the Charles Schulz characters, the Peanuts characters, Snoopy, Charlie Brown, all those guys. And that was the late 1960s, so there was obviously no internet, but there were only about 4 television channels. If you wanted to watch something, then you had to hopefully find that it was going to be on and hopefully tune into it. And those characters were very popular at the time, very drawn to them. And I began to try to draw them myself. And I had a buddy who was also an aspiring sketch guy. So we would make our own comic strips out of the Peanuts characters. And I remember, and the Muppets were around during those years too. I was aware of them. But all of a sudden, I realized at a given point, I got very interested in what the Muppets were doing when Sesame Street happened in 1969, I guess it was. 68, 69. And I was too old for the curriculum, most of the Sesame Street curriculum at that point, but I was very interested in how what these guys were doing, how they worked, and how they built them, and they also seemed to be having an incredible good time doing it.
Definitely. I think what's so nice about those Charles Schulz cartoons, I think they were one of the first cartoons that ever really also spoke to a slightly more adult audience. When you look at those now, they absolutely. They also take care and attention. And one of the things I really love in good children's entertainment is this idea that not only are we teaching these kids and entertaining these kids, but we treat them as almost equals.
Yes.
And
I agree.
I really think that Peanuts is one of the best examples of that ever. It doesn't speak down to its audience at any point. And, some of the topics, especially in the little cartoon shorts, are actually quite deep and quite sort of philosophical. And you think, oh, these are for children, but, it gives them something to think about.
It's interesting, too, that sort of carries over, now that you're saying that, it carries over into the Muppets, because I know Jim used to always say, even the work they did for Sesame Street, they were never aiming their humor or what they were doing towards kids. The curriculum was for kids. Yeah. But in terms of Ernie and Bert, these 2 characters, they were never meant for kids at all. They were, quite adult, to a certain, in the sophistication level of their humor. Oh, yeah. And I think for me, it hit me at some point that, you've got Charles Schulz, this incredible guy who's probably sitting there doing this work all by himself. I don't know whether that's true, but that was what I thought. And I thought, but wait a minute, the Muppets, it's a bunch of people, so maybe I should do something like that. I'm 10 years old planning my life here.
Well, it's kind of nice, isn't it? It's like old Johnny Cash. He saw his wife singing a song on television, didn't he, when he was about 12 years old? And he said, right, I'm marrying June Carter. Yes, please. Yeah, and then off he went. And it's really nice to be, I think it's so nice to be sort of inspired by something and then actually be able to follow that through, because there are so few people in life who, especially at the young age of 10 to 15, actually have any idea what they're going to do. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s now, and most of my friends still don't know what they're going to do. They still sort of go, oh, when I grow up, I'm going to do this. Well, when I look back on it, I don't think I was conscious of making a decision, but I think I sort of decided at about 10 years old that it was either going to be puppets or music. And I was not an excellent musician, but I was very interested in trying, So I played in all these high school rock and roll bands and played keyboards and sang. And that was the closest I ever got to actually putting myself on stage. You know? I was never really interested in doing that. But I was still sort of playing a character, if you think about it. It was the Kiss era. So I see. Of course, very glam rocky, was it? Yeah. Who were your favorite guys of that era? Would you say, sort of band wise? Who you really digging?
A lot of what pulled me into the music that we started to play were the other guys in the band. I was probably stuck in my parents' music to a large degree. Yeah. And they liked Deep Purple, and there was a group called Grand Funk Railroad. I don't know if you know those guys. I loved their stuff, and we copied a lot of their music, but Kiss and Styx and all that sort of time frame, the end of the 70s there. Yeah,
all the good stuff, basically.
Yeah. I don't think we were very good, but we enjoyed trying.
That's right. I mean, almost every creative I speak to has been in a band at some point, because I think it's just a big part of exploring how you're going to express yourself. And
like a rite of passage.
Exactly. And when I sort of started moving away from the music industry, one of the things I've often said is I'm not serious enough to be a singer-songwriter, And I think I think that's why bands is great, because you can go out for a little bit. A lot of actors have been the singer, for example. You know, a lot of tech guys have been a drummer or a bass player. You know,
yeah,
it
right.
really lines up. You know, and then they go off and they find what their ultimate expression is, and it's really nice. You know, it's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So when did you get your first sort of job in a creative sense, like where you actually went, oh, here's a bit of money for doing something fun? When was that?
Yeah, in a very small way, the first thing I really recall doing with making, we made a little money playing around as this high school band. We'd play parties and things, not much, mostly for our friends, and somebody would pay us $100, which we'd split 5 ways or something.
Yeah.
But then I went to I was never interested in ventriloquism, you know, not moving the mouth thing. I was always behind the puppet or underneath.
Yeah.
But I had a friend who was, and believe it or not, there is also a ventriloquist convention that dates all the way back 40 years ago. And they have this little convention and a little museum in Kentucky, which is actually quite well known in the ventriloquist circle. And I went with my friend when I was in high school, took one of my Muppet-like puppets that I had built. And at that point, all these ventriloquists were still using the standard kind of wooden dummies that you know, with the heads and the little mouth, you know. And I showed up with these kind of cool little Muppet-style puppets. So I had probably a half a dozen people who were semi-professional to professional who hired me to build characters for them. And I would make, you know, I mean, for a 17-year-old kid, I was making a couple $100 a puppet.
Oh, that's great.
Once in a while. So that was pretty good. You know, it wasn't bad at all. So that's probably the first thing, was building puppets. And I don't know that I was terribly good at it, but I was the only person doing it, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And then the first professional job was at a theme park. Sid and Marty Krofft, who did this character called Puff and Stuff.
Okay.
Big thing in the States when I was a kid. And they did a theme park here in Atlanta where I live. And I worked there just out in the open with a puppet for about 6 months.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's so weird, but I actually started doing a puppet in my stand-up because I got commissioned to kind of write these silly joke songs that we filmed with puppets.
Oh wow!
And I loved doing it so much. And this company bought the puppet so that we could make the film, so I didn't have to pay for it. And I thought, I'll give it a go. And what I found was so freeing is I'm quite a nice, jovial, happy guy. And then this puppet character, he's a really mean, like American. He's like a lawyer. He's got a load of money he's inherited, and he's really mean. And what I found is I could go out and, through Michael Peach Daddy, my super rude roommate, you know, I could be really horrible to people. And not only would they find it hilarious, at the end they always go, "That Michael's a bit mean, isn't he?" You know, as if they. You
get blamed for it.
Yeah. And I'm like, he's really mean. You know?
Well, I think that's the story of every puppeteer's life. You know, you can do these things that you might not venture to do yourself.
That's exactly it. Yeah. It must be so freeing, because behind a character, as you said, you can really let it go. You know, you can say something that you might not get to usually.
Right. Well, I've been doing this character Weldon, and the thing I do with him, he's meant to be an internet troll. Yeah. So he's supposed to be a mean guy. The first show, I was actually pretty aggressive towards the callers, and I thought, you know what? They're going to stop calling. People are going to be. They're not going. So I had to find a balance where, instead of him being mean to the people who are calling, he joins them in empathy to be mean towards whatever they want to be mean towards, and I can get away with it.
That's right. Yeah. It's all about, like, what is it that this character does or doesn't like, you know? There's a brilliant character comedian called Angelos Epithemiou in this country. He was big about 10 years ago, but he's still gigging and touring, and he is one of the most amazing characters to watch if you get a chance. And he has this great, very simple idea, which is his character is as thick and stupid as he gets, but the whole thing is he's very arrogant and always convinced that he's correct. And he can get so much mileage just out of being completely wrong about something, and then doubling down, and it's just beautiful to watch. You know, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
So I want to move on to the stuff that I'm sure you've covered loads and loads and loads. So if at any point you feel like, "Oh, Sam, I've said this stuff before," then do let me know, mate.
Okay.
So what was your first contact with Jim Henson then, other than seeing him on the television?
Yeah, well, I met a man named Carl Spinney, who's the man who did Big Bird. He passed away about a year ago, unfortunately. But Carol was here in Atlanta for these, they have these conventions, these puppet conventions that I didn't even know about. I was 18 years old. I went to this thing because I mean, I didn't think about getting a job. I thought I was too young to even look into that. But I just wanted to meet one of my heroes, this puppet guy. And again, at that point, I was the only person at this puppetry convention who brought in Muppet-like puppets, that standard sort of look with the rods on the hands that,
Yeah.
And I got to know Carol and his wife, Debbie, a little bit over that weekend, but I never thought I would hear from him again, particularly. And about 3 months later, he called and said Jim was actually looking for new people to work on Sesame Street and thought I should audition. So he actually sort of recruited me into getting an audition with Jim.
Wow. And that's a good recommendation, isn't it? If it's Big Bird.
Yeah,
going,
yeah.
hey,
and this was about halfway through Jim doing the Muppet Show in London. So the next break, Jim, and again, I'm 17 or something, 18. Jim called me, which I will never forget the phone call. I mean, it was amazing. And, essentially just offered me a job over the phone after seeing a little bit of my work on it. I sent on a videotape.
Yeah.
Very crude. And he said, I just wanted to let you know I can give you a job doing something. I don't know what you'll be doing. Yeah. I don't know whether you'll be puppeteering. I might put you in the workshop building puppets, but I just want you to know I'll give you a job doing something.
Wow.
And I was probably levitating. I mean, it was such it's nothing I had even tried to do. I didn't even try to get this job, and it was handed to me in this amazing way. I think so. That was the first contact with him, was over the phone.
That's so cool. And I think now, obviously, if you wanted to build a puppet, for example, you could go on YouTube, you could look at all the things. They'd say, right, here's exactly the felt to use, here's exactly the cuts to use. But I think it must have been, I mean, it does take chutzpah to sit down and go, right, I'm going to make this thing now myself, And I'm sure you're underplaying how good these things were if he's ringing you up and offering you a job straight away,
Well, it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot just to figure out how to cut fabric a certain way to make it look a certain way when you're finished,
Yeah. Did you see, I'm sure you knew him, so you didn't have to watch the documentary, but did you see that beautiful documentary about Carl Spinney? I think it was last year or the year before.
The I Am Big Bird.
Yes. And
yeah, I have seen it. Yeah.
That beautiful bit of footage of him, even when he was at home, his hobby was drawing pictures of Big Bird, and I just thought that's just such a gorgeous, as I said, anyone who's that committed, I'm just all about it. It's so lovely. So
it was the biggest thing in his life. I mean, to be able to be this character that so many kids just loved, and it was an amazing thing for him.
Well, I correct me if I'm wrong, but he had a real Mr. Rogers vibe in that it really felt like there wasn't a pretense to him. It was very much like, this is the character and this is the guy, and he really was that keen and excited about it.
He was. He was always that way. And at the same time, he had this other side to him, because if you probably know this, he also was Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah.
So he could take it to that sort of, sarcastic direction too. I mean, I don't think Oscar ever did this on the show, but one of Carol's fun things he would do, like after they would say cut, is Oscar would tell the kids to go play in the street. I don't think they ever put that on the show, but
no, that's it. That's certainly bad advice for the young children, is it? Go on, run out and play in the street. So once you were there, did he put you straight onto puppeteering, or were you building a bit before you got into puppeteering?
No, he did. He put me straight into puppeteering, and I never built any puppets. He was looking, I think, the interesting thing about Jim was, I think what was very important to him was finding people that he felt could fit into the group. That sort of interpersonal side of it was as important to him as your skill, but because you're going to learn more anyway. And I seemed to mesh okay with people, although it took a long time. It was quite a close-knit group of people. But I went right into performing, doing very, very small things, background stuff. I don't really remember the Muppet Show, but there were all those scenes where there were 1,000 characters in the background. Yeah. I was doing some of those.
Oh, I see. You were out there doing those background bits.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Was it kind of like, once you were in, if a new job came up or a new character needed a voice, was it quite democratic, or would Jim go, this is the character, this is the idea, now you run with it, or were you allowed to develop stuff yourself?
A little bit of both. He was very sensitive to how long it was or the length of time a person needed to develop into being able to be strong with characters. Because when I showed up, I had really no acting background at all. I had done, you know, the manipulation of the puppets, and I could improvise with a puppet reasonably well. I mean, in terms of just having something to say, it wasn't necessarily quality improvising. It was just, I was able to keep a puppet alive, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And, but we didn't do that on the Muppet Show. The Muppet Show was written. And so when I came for me, trying to read a script, I was dreadfully afraid to open my mouth and actually do the lines. You know, I remember sitting at a read through once early on where Jim, this is part of the answer to your question, he chose to give me the chance to do a character. And we're all sitting around a table doing the read through, and you've got these incredible people who just do these loud, boisterous characters, and they are very confident. And then it came to Steve, and I've got my lines, and I can only imagine I must have looked like my head was down and I was all around my script, and I was just reading my lines like this because I was so afraid. I had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And one of the writers, one of our British writers, actually, a guy named Chris Langham, who, if you don't know who Chris is, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah. Chris
came to me. We went to have lunch after. We all went to the studio canteen in Elstree, and I'm getting my lunch, and Chris stood behind me. He was a sarcastic guy, but he wasn't trying to be mean. He leaned over and he said, you know, when you have a character to read, for us writers, it's best if we can actually hear what you're saying. And at the time I was devastated, but now of course it's very funny because it was so true.
Well, that's it. And especially when you're young and new, you need direction, don't you? It makes perfect sense for people who know what they're talking about to point you in the right direction a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how long was it before Rizzo started to appear as a character? Because I'm guessing he's your main real creation, isn't he, Rizzo the Rat?
He was the earliest one. Yeah. I mean, I did this dog Miss Piggy had called Fufu, which was a little white dog.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know you were Fufu as well. That's cool.
That character was basically like an accessory for Miss Piggy, you know.
Yeah.
It could have been a purse, you know. But you know, just puppeteering it. There wasn't a lot of personality there. But Rizzo happened because I found this box full of rat puppets that were stored someplace.
Right.
And it was one of those situations where in the backstage area, Kermit's delivering his lines up close to camera, and Jim just said, grab a puppet. And he encouraged all of us who were new to get in the background and try to upstage them, try to draw the attention.
Right, yeah.
He wanted us to learn that stuff, you know. So I got this little rat who was next to Kermit. He was, you know, about half his height. Terrible, terrible puppet, like falling apart. And so Kermit's there delivering lines, and Miss Piggy comes through, and Fozzie, all these characters, and Kermit's talking to them. And all the time Kermit's talking, standing next to him is this little rat. And all the rat's doing is just sitting there. He'd look at Kermit. Kermit would say something. He'd look at the other guy, and then he'd look down and he'd think about it, and he'd look back, and, you know, somebody would nod yes, the rat would nod yes. Somebody would nod no, the rat, you know. So it was just reacting to whatever was happening. No sound, no audio, no voice. And at the end, Jim got through the scene, and he just cracked up and started laughing because I was drawing his attention away from what he was doing. Yeah. And he said, where did you get that terrible puppet? And I said, well, it was in a box stored under the bleachers over here. And he turned to me and he said, we're going to make that rat a star. and so he said, I want you to redesign the puppet, work with the workshop, get it rebuilt, come up with, you know, do what you want to do, and that's going to be your character. Wow. And Frank Oz actually came up with Rizzo as a name based on Ratso Rizzo from Midnight Cowboy.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Was the sort of New Jersey thing like a really obvious choice because rats in New York and that area, you know, or was it something?
It was an obvious choice, and it took me a long time to be able to do it because I'm a guy from the southern United States who'd never spent any time in New York. I didn't have that accent or that character at all. Yeah. And Rizzo was cast as sort of the leader of the rats. He was supposed to be the toughest of them all. Yeah. And I didn't have that in me at all. So the first show where Rizzo really had anything to say was with Christopher Reeve, who played Superman back then. Yeah, yeah. And the rats were demanding, something. They were making demands of Kermit. So he's surrounded by all these rats. I had Jerry Nelson and Richard Hunt, two extremely strong performers from the Northeast, from Jersey and New York, you know. And they are just blasting Rizzo, who's got all the dialogue away, just with what they're putting in. Yeah. And I can't keep up. So, you know, I just didn't have the character in me. And the character probably didn't get to the stage where he was strong for about 3 years. It took me a while to really figure out who he was. Well, I just didn't have the accent.
Once again, though, that's the beauty of the creative process, isn't it? Yeah. You know, and if you look at any I mean, sitcom, comedy show, there's always these developments where you finally get the core of the character. And sometimes it can take, I don't know if you're a professional wrestling guy at all, but wrestling.
I once was, yeah, I was really into it.
Wrestling's like a really great example of that. You get these guys who are given just awful characters who everybody hates, but they just hammer away. And then in 2 years, they're absolutely top of the tree, you know.
Well, that's true. We did a piece with the WWE people here in the States.
Of course,
with the Muppets. The Muppets appeared on their broadcast a couple times, and we were live in the arena shooting these things. And I remember that when I heard we were going to do this, I thought, how is this going to work? How are the Muppets going to fit in with the wrestlers? And it was so much fun. It was a blast. They're the nicest people, and they love the characters, and they played along.
They're absolute consummate performers as well.
Because
people forget that it's 90% acting and showing up, and only 10% actual wrestling. You know?
Right.
Yeah, so they're all about that, and they totally understand playing people who they've not been. So there was one thing I really wanted to ask you about. Now, you are in my all-time favorite childhood movie, which is The Dark Crystal. And
yes, sure.
You were the scientist, weren't you?
Yeah.
Now, I've got to say, you were the scariest character in that film by a long way. And you're responsible for giving me a lot of nightmares when I was a child.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I guess I'll say thank you. I don't know. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah. That scene where you've got the podlings and you're like torturing them, that was
draining their life out.
Yeah, that really stayed with me when I was a kid. And it was one of those things.
Bet.
I genuinely, it's one of my earliest memories of being genuinely like scared, but then also intrigued. You know, I was like, okay, so this is good. So did you do all of the actual costumed performance as well as all the voice, or did you kind of do, voiceover? Because I know in the new season they did the character acting and then the voices came in afterwards. Were you the physical embodiment as well as the voice?
I was both on that character. We didn't really, but we went back and dubbed everything afterwards because we were inside of those costumes. None of the audio was any good. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It would have been exactly like that. And but we sort of had to do a voice. And I learned early on that Jim wanted me to do the voice of that character. there were only a couple of us who did the voices of our characters in that film. Mostly they were done by other actors. And I remember Jim and Frank co-directed that. They came to me, they came to everybody and said, we're looking for the right sound for the voice for the Skeksis. We don't know what it's going to be. So put something on a cassette for us, put something on tape for us.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I can't, I'm no good at this. I can't do this. And I went home and I did, you remember an actor named Peter Lorre?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, my voice was very much like Peter Lorre. So that's basically, it's nothing like Peter Lorre.
Yeah,
it's like
course,
a really bad Peter Lorre.
Yeah.
And that was basically the Skeksis scientist was Peter Lorre. And I did this and made it more breathy and growly. And I gave this tape to them, and I thought, well, yeah, this is crap. And they both came back and they said, where did that voice come from? How did you do it? And I did it for them, and they said, that's exactly what we're looking for the Skeksis. So I knew as I was shooting the character that I was going to be doing the voice, so I was doing it the whole time. My throat was hurting all the time.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I don't know if you're aware or not, but Mark Hamill did the voice of that character in the new one. So, what, for better or worse, what an honor to have Luke Skywalker play your character.
I mean, Mark's great. We worked with him back on the Muppet Show and did a few things.
Yeah, so you were already a puppeteer when they were on, weren't you?
That's
and really cool. Yeah.
They had just become incredible big stars. Him and Harrison Ford and Anthony Daniels and C-3PO, all those guys. Yeah. And they did the Muppet Show. So there for a little while, we would get to go to their premieres in Leicester Square and things like that, I haven't had any contact with Mark in a long time, but if anybody's going to do it, it may as well be him.
Yeah,
I would love
to have
done it. They didn't ask me to do it, but there you go.
I have a horrible feeling when I looked at that cast list, I was like, oh, they've got Netflix money now, so they'll get
You know
what I mean?
They want all the big names to
exactly,
do the
yeah, they'll get Hamill and Simon Pegg, and then all the poor shopping voice actors will all be missing out, But,
exactly.
I think that's how these things go nowadays, Sam. So, obviously, I got to speak to Ginger Baker's daughter really recently, And that was an amazing conversation because she is just friends with Eric Clapton. Do you know what I mean? And she's just, you know, and when she was a kid, Jimi Hendrix used to come around her house, you know, so, and you kind of think about these things. Is there anyone that you kind of got on well with or you were working with, and then something happened where all of a sudden you went, oh my God, this is actually a really enormous, important person, you know?
Well, you know, there were so many of the sort of golden age of Hollywood stars that we worked with on the Muppet Show. And I was the youngest there, you know, still in my teens when I showed up. And so I had a huge crossover with people that were really more of my parents' generation. Like, you know, it may have been more American stars, but people like Bob Hope and Danny Kaye and people who were very big here in the States. And you mentioned Johnny Cash earlier. Yeah. We worked with somebody like Johnny Cash, and June was there, you know, and I mean, all this kind of people, you know, just a ton of them. And I mean, I felt that all the time, you know. I would sort of step back because I had less responsibility in those days and think, this is really incredible. I mean, I heard, you know, I don't know when you're broadcasting our interview, but I just heard today that Sean Connery passed away.
Yeah, it's really sad.
I had an amazing moment with him in time. He wasn't on the Muppet Show, but I was just having dinner with a Hollywood producer named Juliette Blake, who had worked with him at a hotel in LA. And here comes Sean Connery with his wife. They sit at another table. Yeah. And she knew him quite well. And so she just waved and he waved. They sat down. He was very polite. They sat way over there at the other side of the restaurant. And then about halfway through the meal, she sort of looks up and this shadowy figure standing next to us, we're across the table, and he leans over and he says, I can't do the accent, but he says, I don't want either of you to look, but there's a Russian spy over there and I want to let you know I'm going to keep an eye on him during the meal. You know, and then he invited us to have drinks after our meal. And so we sat with Sean Connery and his wife for an hour and a half, you know? Yeah. Things like that you just can't top, you know?
That's right. Yeah, and obviously, I've got to mention him, but Michael Caine. You work very closely with Michael Caine, yeah.
Of course.
Once again, another, like, I had 3 video cassettes when I was a boy, and it was Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, and The Dark Crystal. So you were in all 3 of them. But like Michael Caine, obviously this is someone who's no idea about his personal life, but I would imagine he's quite an intimidating figure. But I'm guessing once you get to work with them for a little bit, what was he like? Was he nice? Was he involved? Was he a bit distant? You know, what was his...
No, he was incredibly gracious, very professional, and really liked to laugh. And just before we went to shoot the film, I saw this program called Inside the Actors Studio with him.
Yes,
where
of course,
they interview all these people, right? And one of the things 2 things. One is that he was saying that when he works, he never blinks when his close-ups.
Right.
One of his acting techniques, he never blinks in the close-up. And so I used that line with Kermit for years. Kermit would say something he learned from Michael Caine was to never blink. You know,
yeah.
But the other thing was that I realized Michael Caine is a really like the top of the A-list actor. I need to up my game here. So for the first time in my career, I memorized all my lines.
All right.
Because you don't have to do that with the Muppets necessarily. You can tape your scripts up down below and read them while you work.
Yeah, you could.
Right?
Yeah.
But I thought, this is Michael Caine. I can't walk in and be a slacker. I got to be good. So fortunately, it was mostly all the original Charles Dickens books, so it was pretty easy stuff to read and remember. It didn't change every day. But I really upped my game to work with Michael Caine. I tried.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I always say, like, it's what's good about, and Muppet Treasure Island as well, is like the human actors in that treat that material with a lot of respect. They're not gurning. They're not playing up to the camera. They're not going, oh, this is a children's movie.
That's right.
He played that as straight as you would play that character, I think, in any setting. And I think it does such justice for the source material as well as the performance of everybody in it to do that, you know.
It does. And it makes, you know, it was a smart choice too, because it's pretty hard to upstage the Muppets in a role like that. Yeah. And so it's better just to play it straight and be the bad guy. It made him a real intimidating villain in a way. You know, if he had been silly, it wouldn't have been very intimidating.
Yeah.
You know?
He does sing a song right at the end, and even as a kid.
Yeah.
Even as a kid,
and when he becomes a nice guy, right?
Yeah, that's it. But even as a kid, I remember thinking Michael Caine's not the most natural of singers. Do you know what I mean?
I think he probably felt that way. My recollection is he kind of felt like he wasn't going to be a great singer, but he did. What he could do.
But yeah,
and he did a great job in the end. I mean,
he certainly did. He got into the spirit of the thing, which is the nice thing, the Christmas spirit, as it were. So
the other guy I sung a song with, which was really interesting, was Robert De Niro one time.
Oh wow, yeah.
On Saturday Night Live. Now I'm name dropping, but Saturday Night Live. Kermit sung a Christmas song with Robert De Niro, and I don't think he considers himself to be a singer per se.
No.
So we did a rehearsal, and he seemed a little uncomfortable. And frankly, when I have to sing live, I'm uncomfortable too. So Kermit, it's a live show. So Kermit pops up, they sing the song. We get through it was the Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas or something like that. So there's a big pause after the first couple of lines. And Kermit turned to Bob and said something like, "Oh, I think that was pretty good." And Kermit was talking about himself.
Yeah.
And he thought I was talking about him, and he said, "Hey, I'm doing the best I can." And then I felt terrible because I wasn't talking about him.
That's it.
And Kermit goes, "Oh, no, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about me."
So, just one last question before we
Sure.
break for the first half.
Yes.
What was I going to say here? So, how and when did you find out that you were going to be taking over as Kermit? Because I've always thought, I love how they dealt with it on the television. I remember seeing the TV show where they sort of addressed it and stuff, and I could be wrong here, but I seem to feel like that was the first time they ever, as the Muppets, addressed the fact that Jim Henson was a thing, if that makes sense. So I think it was a really beautiful way of doing it. But what was it like for you, and how did you find out that you'd got that job?
Well, we were at that point when Jim passed away. He was in the process of starting to sell his company to Disney, and that fell apart when he died. But at that point, and then the Muppets were sold later on. But he, my understanding from the story, he never spoke to me about it, but he had said to his wife Jane and to a couple of people that he thought he might become too busy as a creative person at Disney to continue to perform Kermit.
Right.
He was going to be like a new creative force within Disney with all these projects to do. And he had said, evidently he said, if that happens, he may ask me to do it.
Oh, wow.
We never talked about it. We talked about lots of things, but not that. And he'd said it to these people, and when he passed away, I was asked to do it. It was Brian, his son Brian, who took over running the company. Yeah. And his wife Jane, and I think Frank was there. Frank Oz. We were at Walt Disney World in Florida.
Oh wow.
And I don't remember why. I want to say we were there because everybody thought the sale was going to go through, and they brought us down just to treat us nicely.
Oh, I see.
To like treat us to go to Disney. Yeah. And then it all fell apart. But they asked me one night. They said, could you just drop by our hotel room? So I did. And the three of them basically proposed this idea. They said, we just want to ask you how you'd feel about this, giving this a try, and if you're uncomfortable, or, if there's a trial, well, maybe it's a trial period. And if you don't like it or it's not working out. And I immediately said yes, but I was also just frightened out of my mind. It was very soon after Jim had passed away.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of emotional stuff going on with all of us in the company. And I just jumped in the deep end with it. And I sort of very quickly thought, well, this has got to be about, I'm not going to sound exactly like Jim, so it has to be about the character. And I knew that's really what the Muppets were about anyway, because by then I'd done characters of my own. And I started thinking about the things that Jim did when he was performing Kermit, the way his body posture and his facial expressions. Because I don't know whether you know this, maybe you do this when you're doing your puppet character, but underneath the puppets, we're doing these extreme, ridiculous, overacting things because you're pushing this performance out this way, And I worked next to Jim many, many times when he was doing that, so I could recollect all of that. And I also had some video that I had shot of Jim working. So it was more about watching Jim than it was about watching Kermit. And it was finding the little things that Jim put into Kermit that were a part of him that I knew, because he would do the same things when you went out to dinner with him. There were just things that went into Kermit. And then there were things that were not exactly Jim, that were exaggerations of Jim. So once I sort of zeroed in on all that stuff, I was able to start taking a crack at it.
Yeah. If I may, one of the things I've always thought, when I think of Kermit the Frog, I always think leader of men, for one. Like, he knows, do you know what I mean? He knows how to get things done. But the other thing I always feel with Kermit, and I don't know if this was an idea you ever had, but this idea of like repressed, like anger, like he's moving like, oh, I'm going to get really annoyed if this doesn't work out.
Yeah,
but it always just tips to the point where it works out just before he gets really, really angry, you know?
Before he has to be angry, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anxiousness, perhaps.
Anxiousness is a great way of putting
it.
I always kind of got that vibe from him. And like whenever I was, because I've run so much creative stuff, be it filming specials or organizing comedians or whatever. I always think like, right, Kermit mindset, overcome, you know, get to work, get it done. And I just think
it's very much not only who Kermit is, but it's who Jim was as well. I mean, Jim was, it was that psychodrama, you know, behind the scenes, the Muppets were just us being us and the Muppets being the Muppets, and Kermit was in the center just like Jim was, and we were all sort of revolving around the center of this thing, you know, and he was the glue that held it all together, and Kermit was that with the Muppets, you know.
Well, that's it. You get those beautiful parallels. So, I keep saying one last thing before we take a break.
Okay.
But who was your favorite character that you didn't get to play? Who was the character where you really thought like, oh, that's a good one. I like that, you know?
Well, you know, it's funny. That's a hard question to answer because I think there was never a situation where Jim said, okay, here's a new character, everybody audition. We didn't work that way. So there was never, anything where somebody said, where I would say, well, I wish I'd gotten that character that somebody else did.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the closest I could relate to that, and this was just youth, was that Jim, toward the end of the Muppet Show, asked everybody, you know, because they'd done so many ideas. He was looking for ideas. Are there any, he said, you know, if there are any popular songs that you know that you think would make good skits or bits on the Muppet Show, let's develop them. And one of them was this Charlie Daniels song called The Devil Went Down to Georgia. That was popular at the time, just come out. And I said, well, that lends itself to a story. We should do it.
Yeah.
And Jim actually let me, it's the only puppet I ever built that was really used on the Muppet Show, build the devil character.
All right, cool.
And I really was hoping to perform it, and he actually gave it to Jerry Nelson. Now, it was a smart choice. Jerry was a much better performer for that character than I would have been. But I remember saying to Jim, well, we're sitting on the set, Jim's sitting next to me, we're doing two puppets, and Jerry's doing the devil, and I'm saying, oh, I really would have loved to have done that, Jim.
The devil, yeah.
You know, and you know, and he asked me. He was really very considerate about it. And he talked to me about it, and he talked about the way the sketch had come together because he'd asked me for my ideas. And he said something to me that really made an impression on me at that point. I've never forgotten it, because I was saying, well, you know, it might have been nice if we could have done this or that or the other thing. And he said, you know, what I see in my mind when I develop something, usually it turns out that I'll only get about 60% of it. And I remember thinking that must be so frustrating.
Yeah.
To know that 40% of your vision didn't make it into the project. You know? But yet, then there's Jim, who was the most collaborative guy on the planet, and that 40% was everybody else. We would have all been incredibly frustrated if he hadn't been willing to yield 40% of his vision.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you sometimes find, if you see maybe a bit of your early performance, do you ever think like, oh, I'd do that differently now?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. I think it's the curse, isn't it? Because I've made stuff, you know, and I take it home to show my family, and I go, oh, look at this. I'm so proud of this. But I have to leave the room. I can't sit and look at something I've made because it's like so odd. Yeah.
I try to put myself back in the place I was then from a point of view, you know, some of the stuff I see that I did on Fraggle, because I said earlier, it was my favorite project. Some of it is not terribly good. But overall, the bulk of the series is great.
Oh, definitely.
And there's a couple of particular musical numbers that I really love that we did that I was able to really concentrate on, you know, things like that. So I can pick out the things that, you know, I really loved.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's always how you've got to think about it, isn't it? Because
Yeah, I
otherwise you
think
end
so.
up completely tortured if you're just like, oh, I never hit it how I was supposed to, you know, whereas you should just go, wow, that, you know, that's
Yeah.
good for what it was, sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, it's all part of building the process of getting better at things. You know, we did this ABC series a few years ago, which got all kind of mixed reviews. A lot of people hated it.
I adore it. I've got to say,
Yeah.
I loved it, mate. I was such a fan
Yeah.
of that.
Well, you know, and whether a lot of fans didn't like the tone of it, and what it boiled down to in a way was it took them up in a very different direction than the fans were accustomed to. But in terms of the puppetry work that we did on the show, the things that the characters did, I think it is some of the best work that we ever did.
Oh, definitely.
You know?
It's a beautiful piece of technical work. The only, just as a big nerd, the only bit that kind of I couldn't get on board with was Sam Eagle being like awkwardly in love. I was like, that was the only bit where I was like, oh, not sure about that. But the rest of it, I just loved. I think there's a Frank Zappa joke with the Electric Mayhem, just a real passing joke, and I'm just like, I bet the writer of that is so pleased that I enjoyed that joke, because I think I'm one of only about 20 people who would have
right.
That's a Frank Zappa joke, you know. And I just love stuff like that, and I think I mean, it must have been nice for those young writers to have a crack at those characters as well, is something that I often think about when I see that sort of thing.
I think it was. And unfortunately, most of the fans didn't necessarily agree, but, you know.
I think it's like so many things, though, isn't it? When you've got something so iconic, it's that eternal push and pull. Like, do we evolve these characters? Do we move it to a new thing? Or do we appease the old fans?
Right.
And like Star Wars is the best example of that ever. Because whatever Star Wars do, someone is going to think it's brilliant and someone's going to think it's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one that got me on Star Wars was when I saw some of the promotional things. This really bugged me, because it is one of my buttons with the Muppets too, is when they just get used in such a weird way. When I saw some sort of a promotion where Darth Vader was riding the tube or something like that, and I thought, no, wait a minute, this was a galaxy far, far away, people. Come on.
And
you're going to Yoda was, you know,
undermines his menacing presence,
felt really weird.
Yeah. Oh, mate. So, okay, this is an odd question, but is there ever something that you've done with the Muppets where you were just like, man, why on earth did we do that? Or could you not talk about that?
No, there are lots of things. There are lots of things. I mean, there are parts of many of the recent projects that we did with Disney, the movies and the TV show, where there were particular things in there that I thought were out of character.
Yeah.
And I don't think they needed to go out of the scripts. I just think they needed to be doctored up. And sometimes there was a refusal to doctor them up. So, you know, at the end of the day, I hit my marks and said my lines.
Yeah.
But I tried to keep the character in there as much as I could. And it's difficult because the performers who know the characters and have been doing them for so long, they are the thread that follows that character for decades sometimes. And so I know it can be difficult for a new set of writers to understand who the characters are, you know, and find the balance. It's about finding the balance between moving forward and keeping enough of what's there, you know. Lots of there's been many things. One of the ones, and there's still nice work in it, one of the weirdest ones we ever did was the Muppet Wizard of Oz. I think was not our finest hour by any means. You know, it was weird, very strange.
Yeah, I've not watched that one for exactly that reason. Like, a lot of people have said that's one of the oddest Muppet properties. You know? It's a very strange idea.
It was. We could have just not done it, and it would have been okay. You know.
I think that's
paid some bills, but
that's it. You know, quite a lot. Sometimes it's got to be like that, hasn't it? But I always think, because I remember I'd seen some interview or something where one of my favourite jokes in Muppet Treasure Island is Mr. Bimbo, the little man who lives in Fozzie Bear's finger. And I remember as a kid just thinking that was beautiful, but I can't remember who I was listening to interviewed, and they just said, I hated that joke and I thought it was awful and it should never have been in there. So that sort of thing must happen a lot, you know.
I guess it does. I mean, that's, you know, somebody once said, somebody like pretty famous and smarter than me said, if you want to start a universe, you have to have at least two different perspectives. That's what it's all built on. So one person's Mr. Bimbo is another person's thing to hate.
Well, that's exactly right. Someone's going to love that sort of silly idea. Yeah. But yeah, I just think, yeah, as I said, those early ones that you did, definitely, especially Muppet Treasure Island and Dark Crystal, I watched those till the tape wore out. But
wow.
I just still think to this day, like, obviously Billy Connolly's in that, you know, and he's a huge influence on me anyway. Yeah. But even just stuff like his characterization and his performance, I just think is so, I don't know, it's just so on point, you know.
Yeah.
And Kevin Bishop obviously grew up then to be quite a famous comedian in in his own right. And that was pretty amazing, you know.
I ran into Kevin in Los Angeles. It's been a while now. It was probably 2011, but still, it was around the time we did the first of the two Disney Muppet films. And he was doing a series out there, and we had a chance to at least catch up a little bit. But
oh, that's so nice. Yeah, you physically get to see him like grow up. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really cool. And, you know, especially his role in that movie, because he was probably only a year or two older than me at that point.
Oh, wow.
So that was really the role I was very attached to as a kid, you know.
Yeah.
Used to sing all the songs and I used to have me mop. It was good, you know. It was good fun. That's really nice. Right. Okay. We are going to take a tiny break.
Okay. Yeah.
And then maybe we'll be interrupted after the break by a mean old troll. We'll see.
Yeah, you can always hope not, but he tends to wait until I'm about halfway through an interview, and then he'll just jump
in and appear. Right. So this is Sam Rhodes Presents Segmentertainment. Do drop into the patreon.com/Sam Rhodes CE if you like, because it's COVID times and I've got no money. Join us after the break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor and we'll be right back.
Well, hi, I'm Sleepy Pete from Sleepy Pete's Cape and Poncho Emporium. If you need a cape or a poncho for a music festival or just spooking about, come and see me, Sleepy Pete at Sleepy Pete's Cape and Poncho Emporium. If I'm awake, I'll sell you a poncho.
And we are back. Welcome back to... Wait a minute. You're not Steve. Who's this?
Well, no, and you don't want Steve either. I'm Weldon, the IT guy, and I hereby hack this broadcast.
Oh, God, this is the last thing we need. I knew Zoom was going to be a bad idea.
Zoom's perfect. It's easy to break into.
Oh, yeah. getting all about... What on earth are you, ugly little being?
Yeah, that's right. You got it. You hit the nail on the head. No, I am, okay, let me explain, Sam, in case you don't know. Okay. I am hacking this broadcast because I don't like puppet people.
Right.
And he's tied up. Literally tied up. Right. I tied him up. I locked him in a stall in the men's room, in the loo, as you would say.
I would, yeah.
Yeah. So I am Weldon, the IT guy, and IT stands for Internet Troll. And I am trolling you now, but you know, we can just talk about whatever music. I know you like music.
I do like a bit of music. What is troll music like? Is it different from human music? Have we got?
Pretty much the same. Yeah, I play a mean electric.
Do you?
Yeah, you have to check me out on my YouTube channel. I play electric guitar. I play piano. I play banjo. I play flugelhorn.
Flugelhorn. That's a serious undertaking. That one.
It is. It's a troll instrument.
I'll tell you what, you look a
lot.
Oh,
Sam, I'm hurting. I did a show last night. I'm hurting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hurting. Yeah, I'm hurting. Oh, my back's hurting.
How did the show go last night then? Any good?
It went like crap, Sam. It was the worst show I've ever done. The whole frickin' thing fell apart. It was a mess. It's a stupid internet. I use this service called Discord. Oh, Screw them. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, may I say this close?
Get nice and close, mate. Yeah, show us how upset you are.
They ever screwed me up last night. The whole point is, my mobsters out there, my troll mobsters are supposed to call me, and they couldn't because of Discord.
That's no good, is it, mate? No one needs that. But
it's ridiculous.
Do you think it's a bit of a comeuppance, though? Because, I mean, you're stealing other people's airtime, you're hacking into things, and then guess what? Sometimes it doesn't work out.
Maybe I think I probably hacked myself.
That's right. You've hacked, like in a circular motion. You've come back round, hacked yourself.
I have. It's hacking karma. Yes.
So, has the COVID world affected the trolls? Are you having any problems with that stuff? No?
No, I don't have to worry about it. I'm not I can't get it because I'm part pangolin.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Yeah. I live in a cave. I'm surrounded by bat feces. Doesn't touch me.
That's it. And you've had everything under the sun, so a little bit of COVID wouldn't even affect you, would it?
Listen, I think it's going to be us trolls who are the ones who are going to come up with the blood that's going to give everyone the antibodies.
Oh, I see. Right.
That's what I'm going for.
But because you're a troll, you're going to keep it for yourself, aren't you? You're not going to share it with anyone.
I might.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell it.
You're going to sell it. I think there'd be a lot of money in that, mate. Yeah, that would be a good thing to sell.
I mean, I don't need money. I live in a cave, but what the hell?
When you're in your cave, right? What do you, other than hacking people on the internet, have you got hobbies? Is there anything that you enjoy doing as a troll?
I do.
Yeah.
I ain't going to tell you, but it's nasty. I can't tell you.
Oh, it's nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a family show, right?
Well.
Okay, listen. Let me put it to you like this.
Right.
You're a guy, okay?
Yeah.
You're a guy.
I'm a guy.
Are you married?
I'm not married, mate. No.
You're single. Do you live by yourself?
I also live by myself.
Okay, what do you do when you're sitting around? Say no more.
I see. Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you're on your own and all you've got is access to the internet, there's very little else to do, is there?
You see, I knew you'd get it.
Yeah.
I knew you'd figure it out. Yeah.
So
hacking gives the word hacking a whole different meaning.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Hacking away. Yeah.
I just hack away. Yeah, that's me, hacking away. Woo! You know what? I'm only kidding because I'm not anatomically correct, so I can't,
of course, matter. Yeah. No, it's absolutely fine, yeah. So living on your own, though, do you ever get a little bit lonely? Is that something?
Yeah? Yeah. I'm a troll, though. It's good. That's what I like.
Oh, you like being lonely?
Misery. Misery is my middle name. Not really. Figuratively is my middle name.
Figuratively.
The is my actual middle name, I guess.
The is your middle name.
Yeah, Weldon V.I.T. Guy.
Oh, okay. 4 names. That's good. That's quite posh. Are you from a wealthy family? Is that why you've got a double-barreled name?
I don't know. I might be. I don't know anything about my family. I was hatched.
Oh, I see. Is that where?
I'm lucky my mom didn't eat me. It's tough when you're a troll. We don't really know our parents.
Oh, right. Yeah.
No.
So do you think not knowing your parents could be the reason that you've got this sort of anger, this sort of this rage against the world?
I don't know. I know a lot of people who know their parents who are worse. Yeah,
that is true. They do say,
depends on the parents.
That's right. They always do a number on you, those parents, don't they? Even if they're liking you. I think
imagine busting your way out of an egg and there's no food. I mean, there's not even a phone to call Uber.
No, you just got to crawl out of the egg. So, excuse me if this is rude, but obviously you came from an egg, okay? So, and you live on your own. You seem like a very solitary guy.
Yeah.
If you wanted an egg of your own, to start your own family to abandon.
Yeah.
What's the process there? How does that work?
A lot of hard straining. Yeah. We are what they call parthenogenetic.
Oh, I see.
We just pop them out. I could do it right now, but I ain't going to do it because, I'm somebody else's chair.
Exactly. I wouldn't ask you to do it now. It's a very private thing, popping out an egg, I'd imagine. Yeah, you'd want a bit of privacy, a bit of time to yourself. Maybe some soothing music to listen to as well while you do it.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Some Def Leppard.
Def Leppard's what you pop
Drown out
out
the screaming.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, what has been your favorite thing to sort of troll so far? Is there anything you've seen in pop culture, anything that you just think that needs a good trolling, that needs to be brought down a peg?
It's hard to choose one thing. There's so much out there. That's a good question. I can't pick one. I did so many things. There's so much stuff out there that needs to be just wiped off the map.
Yeah.
The election's fun. I don't have any good jokes, but it's fun.
No. The election...
Yeah, I did some jokes last night about it.
That Donald J. Trump, man, I don't know if you've seen, but he's
a troll. I can tell you that.
He's definitely a troll. I mean, he's got a similar haircut to you. He's got the similar mannerisms.
See the resemblance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine him covered in goo and sort of sliming his way out of an egg casing. Do you know?
Well, he actually said one time that he liked to troll the other candidates. I've got it on record.
You've actually got that written down, have you?
Yes, I do. I got it recorded.
Wow. He's got a big old bum on him, hasn't he? He does. He's got a big caboose. And not many people know this, but the J in the middle of his name actually stands for juicy.
Oh, see? Donald Juicy Trump.
Donald Juicy Trump.
I hear it. It has a nice ring to it. Actually, I like him better now.
That's right. We've got to get that on his...
knowing that.
We've got to get that on his slogans, haven't we? Vote
Yeah,
for
he'd probably
juicy.
win if you put that out there.
That's right, yeah. Because
Yeah.
that's the one thing he's missing out on in this campaign is sex appeal, I think. You know.
Yeah, well, he's probably missing on that everywhere. But anyway, yeah. I don't know.
Do you like
He's a strange fellow.
He is
He's
a
a
strange
troll,
fellow.
though. He's a troll. He's just a troll.
So you like him because he's a troll. What do you feel about the other guy?
Well, if he lives, we'll be all right. I mean, that's the problem. We don't know whether he's going to make it.
That's true. I mean,
almost,
almost,
as of our recording this, it's like, what, 3 more days?
that's right, yeah.
That's a long time in his shape.
That's right. He might not last the night even, you know.
That's right. That's right.
keep seeing-
Halloween, he could get scared.
That's right. There's a lot of ghosts out there. Could just jump out,
Yeah.
boo, and then it's a Biden heart attack, you know.
Yeah, he'd be bye-bye Biden.
Bye-bye Biden.
Isn't that a musical? Bye-bye Biden. Anyway.
Let's get it made. Well, the Hamilton musical was a massive success, wasn't it? So
Yes, it was.
I think
Yes,
a
it was.
Biden musical would be good.
Yes.
Did you see Hamilton? Did that make it down to your cave?
No.
No. Oh, that's a
I
shame.
haven't seen it.
I think
But
you did-
I conjured him last night. Did you hear about that?
I heard about this. You did a
I did a
seance.
seance. I did the first virtual seance.
Right.
For me, anyway. I don't know whether anybody else has done one.
Hmm.
But mine was legit. I promise.
I can believe
Hamilton
it.
showed up, and then he made a toilet noise and went down the drain.
Oh, right. Okay. Because that's what he was famous for, wasn't it? He's on the
That
$10
and being
bill.
shot he was shot by the vice president. A lot of
He
people don't know
was.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like a crazy fact, isn't it? That's because they had a
Yep.
duel, didn't they?
Yes, he did. He had a duel, shot him, killed him. And then the vice president did not get in trouble for that. I think we needed that same kind of thing again, depending on who gets elected.
That's right. We're going to have Kamala Harris take out Trump in a duel. That'd be good,
Oh,
wouldn't it?
you know
do you
what?
reckon?
Stranger things have happened recently.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So if you could duel one person, right? You've got
Hmm.
a duel coming up. Who would you like to duel, and how do you fancy your chances?
Wow. Well, you could say I'm dueling that Whitmire guy. I did hack his website,
Yeah.
wiped it completely off the map earlier this year. I
Yeah.
was hacking his Instagram. I still do. He just gave up. He didn't even try to get rid of me anymore.
Wow. And he's just kind of accepted you into his life now, has he? That's
Yeah,
it.
it's not that I couldn't have had my own Instagram, but what the hell? It's no fun to do that.
No, that's right. If it's just yours, there's no point.
Yeah.
You've got to spoil it for other people. I know that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's my job.
That's exactly it. It's also, it's how Donald Trump feels about most things he approaches as well.
Probably.
It's not good enough just for me to enjoy this. Other people have to actively not enjoy it.
He's a troll.
He's a troll, and I
He's a
love it.
troll. A troll is a troll is a troll.
That's right. How do you feel about his kids?
I don't.
You don't. No, I don't
Nothing.
either, to be honest.
Blank. Total blank. I got nothing.
They barely exist, do they? Hardly.
Well, we know about a few of them. God knows how many there really are.
Mm.
I mean,
It's like our Prime Minister here in England, actually. He could do with a good trolling. Because
Is that
when
Boris?
Yeah, Boris.
Yeah.
When he was running for re-election, he would not state how many children he has. I mean, imagine
Wow.
that. Do you know?
I thought it was bad when they wouldn't let him look at their taxes. We don't even know how many kids the guy's got. Gee,
know.
look at this. That's weird.
I suspect he might be a troll as well, and he's just popping out eggs left, right, and centre, and then
Oh, I think so.
letting them roll off downhill, and then just forgetting
Yeah.
that where he's left them.
If you see any like big eggs floating down the Thames, you'll know it's his.
That's right. He's just
Yeah.
popping an egg in the Thames every couple of hours,
Plopping an egg. Yep, that's what we call it. Just pop one out of the egg hole. Yep.
Nice. Is that going to be the name of your autobiography? Plopped one out of the egg hole.
That's it. That's it.
World of the IT.
Yep, that's it. I like that. My autobiography.
Now I see you've got a lovely little pair of horns on the top of your head there.
Why, thank you.
They're very fetching. I like those a lot. Are they?
They are. They're very sharp.
I was going to say, do you do a lot to maintain that, or is that just something that you kind of naturally have?
Nah. They just pop up.
Do
They
they?
just pop up.
Do they come in once you get a little bit older, or do you kind of have them since you're born?
Well, you have little bumps.
Oh, I see.
Out of the egg, you got bumps. Pretty soon, they're like this. Pretty soon, you can bang things.
Yeah, and do
Yeah.
you bang?
Adolescent. That's troll adolescence. You want to bang things.
Yeah, you do a lot of banging when you're a troll
You
adolescent.
do. Yeah, a lot banging, hacking. I'm alone in a cave. What am I going to do? Yeah, what am I going to do?
What are you going to do? That's exactly right.
I don't know. What am I doing now?
Well, you're talking to me, Sam Rhodes. Have you got any questions for me? Anything you'd like to know?
No, why would I? No.
Not interested.
I don't care. I don't care. You think I care about you? I don't even know who you are. I just wanted to screw up this guy's interview. I'm surprised I've stuck around this long.
That is fair. I mean, I am very uninterested, although I do think, I could be matching you in the hair suit.
Yeah, I like the hair. I like the beard. I like the beard's a good one. The beard's good. Have you ever considered trolling?
I've often thought about it, I've thought, I've spent a lot of my life being nice to people and it's got me nowhere. So
I do offer a correspondence program and you will get a certificate at the end.
Oh, that sounds great. I think I'm on board. How much is it?
Okay. I'll get back to you on that.
You'll get back to it. Okay, cool. Now that sounds great. I'd love to learn how to be a troll because you seem like a handsome, successful, guy with a lot about himself who knows what he wants. Yeah. And I think that's, especially in the modern world, I think that's a good thing to be.
Confidence. You got to have confidence.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
How old are you? Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm done.
You're done. Okay.
No, fair. I really am done.
That's fair, mate. Yeah. Well, I'd say it was a pleasure to meet you if you hadn't have just barged your way in here, But
no, I would appreciate if you didn't say that. It's very untroll-like.
Well, that's exactly right. I'm going to try some trolling right now. It was horrible to meet you. You are awful.
That was very trolly. Thank you very
Good.
much.
I like that. Good.
And saying thank you means something else, but I ain't gonna look. I've already done masturbation jokes. I'm stopping now. Right.
Do you want to just untie Steve just for 5 minutes, just so I can have him right? No.
Oh, all right. What the hell?
Yeah, go on, just for 5
All
minutes.
right. I gotta remember which stall I put it. All right, I'll be right back.
Get that gag out of his mouth. All right.
Okay. All right. It's not a gag. It's a whole roll of toilet paper. So I would never do those jokes on my show.
No, of course. Oh my God, Steve, are you all right, mate? He let you go, did he?
Oh my God! Every time you can't go to the men's room around here. I don't even know how he gets in there.
No.
And he messed up. Look, I'm huge in the camera now.
Fiddling with your camera. You look good in close up, though. It's a good look.
Well, thank you. That's nice. I think I'm a little red in the face, but. Wow.
There you go. Beautiful stuff.
Wow.
Wonderful.
What a guy.
He's a character, isn't he?
He's a mess. He's a mess. We spend way too much time together apart.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'll flip the switch and I'll be back to objective puppeteer. Actually, it's been enormous fun. He's a fun guy.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you. And this has really, really been great. And I can't thank you enough for coming and giving up your time, man. It's really, really beautiful.
You're welcome. I'm glad we were able to make it work.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And if you ever need any music done or anything, I might be your guy. So you send me an email. Yeah, that'd be lovely.
So far, I've done all my own, but I'm running out of ideas. Maybe I'll give you a call.
Definitely, man. No, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, that'd be really, really good. Okay. Yeah. So just a final sign off. Is there anything you'd like to promote? Obviously, Weldon, the IT guy. You've got Twitter, you got Facebook. What's the addresses for people to find you at?
I got a handful of those things. Yeah, I started out on Instagram. I've got Steve_Whitmire. That's Instagram. That'll lead you to the Facebook, which I've completely forgotten because I'm actually not the person who set it up originally, but I'm out there. I'm on Facebook. You can find me there. The latest thing I've done is I finally have a website that's functioning, and that's an easy one because it's stevewhitmire.website.
Okay.
As opposed to .com. So it's easy to find. If you're a Muppet fan, there's a lot of stuff there that has the history of Muppet things that I've worked on stuff. So that's kind of fun. So, and then the YouTube channel is Cave-In, but the best way to find it is probably to search Weldon the IT guy.
Yeah.
Other things pop up if you do Cave-In.
And you got to work as well with the guys from Clerks as well recently, which I
particularly Brian's done about 3 bits with me.
Yeah.
Brian O'Halloran has just been a great friend to our Cave-In show.
Yeah. Talk about the weirdest melding of like my favorite thing as a kid and my favorite thing as a teenager. When I saw that, I was like, wow, that's amazing. It's, as I said, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, sir. This has been Sam Rhodes Presents Segmentertainment. Do subscribe and hopefully I'll hear from you again. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, sir.
The guests come on and they play the jingle. The jingle tells them what they're going to talk about. We spend some time talking about that topic, and then we play them another jingle. Yes, that's Segmentertainment. That's Segmentertainment. Sam Rhodes.